Returning also to one of our top stories there, the Melbourne man Oscar Jenkins has been captured by Russian forces as the Albanese government attempts to cool tempers and ensure the Australian man's well-being. Joining me for more on this is National Senator Matt Canavan. Good morning to you. Thanks for your time on this Christmas Eve. The Australian government is urging Russia to adhere here to international humanitarian law. Will it listen?
Look, I doubt it, Holly. I mean, the experience of the last few years has been that Russia has flouted international law. There obviously have been some concerning stories about the treatment of prisoners by Russia. All we can do is hope and pray for this Australian man that he is treated with respect. I'm sure the Australian government will do what it can to help and support an Australian citizen. And of course, this does confirm the wisdom of the Australian government's advice for Australians not to travel to Ukraine, to not get involved in this conflict. It's obviously a very high risk, and very unfortunately for Mr. Jenkins and his family, those risks have been materialised here.
And the images in that video, simply heartbreaking there to see Mr. Jenkins in that way. Russia's ambassador has now been called in to help here. Will he be able to make any difference, do you think?
Well, look, I support the Australian government doing what it can. As I say, he is an Australian citizen and we should do what we can to provide Mr. Jenkins assistance. Look, there will probably be discussions at some point about whether or not Mr. Jenkins can be released. Such releases have occurred, I believe, when other countries' citizens have been detained in this way. I believe this is the first Australian detained as a prisoner of war during this conflict. So look, there is some hope, I think, for Mr. Jenkins and his family, given the outcome of those other discussions. Or there's not much more I can add apart from just supporting the Australian government and hoping for the best for this Australian.
Matt, I want to get your thoughts though. I mean, Mr. Jenkins grew up in Melbourne, went to a prestigious school, and now he's ended up fighting for Ukraine. Many people asking, how did it get to that point? Now, one suggestion moving forward is to swap him for pro-Putin activist Semyon Boykov. Could that be a possibility?
Look, I don't want to rule anything out or off the table at a time like this. I think that's a matter for the Australian government to discuss. I know pretty much nothing about this Mr. Boykov, apart from a bit of controversy. So I don't know much about his circumstances and I can't really comment on them. But as I say, I do support the Australian government talking to the Russian authorities about this case and doing the best we can for an Australian citizen. As I say, there's not much more we can do, but at this Christmas time, hope and pray for Mr. Jenkins and his family. And again, just stress that it's not a good idea to travel to Ukraine at this time with a conflict that's ongoing like this.
Our thoughts are with Mr. Jenkins' family this time. Before we wrap up, I also want to get your thoughts on Labor's stance on Israel. Greens leader Adam Band is saying that Labor's position is going green. Do you agree with that?
Look, I think Labor's position, where I do agree with Mr. Band, is the Labor Party's position on this terrible conflict in the Middle East seems to be constantly dictated to by the local political circumstances of the Labor Party. To me, it doesn't seem like they have been a genuine voice for peace and resolution in the Middle East. They've always been speaking out of the corner of their mouth about what their position on this Middle East conflict might mean for their electoral position in some of their seats that are dominated by voters with interest back there in the Middle East. And I think that's very unfortunate because this is a tragic conflict. There remain innocent Israelis and citizens of other countries hostage from the brutal attacks by Hamas. We've obviously then seen tens of thousands of innocent Palestinians killed in the response to that terrible attack on October 7th. So I just want to see an end to the conflict, and I think it's unfortunate that the government's votes in the United Nations, their positions on these issues, seems to be dictated by the local electoral implications, not what it would mean for peace in the Middle East.
Okay, yeah, Matt, I never thought I'd hear you agree with Mr. Bant there, but thank you for your time on Christmas Eve. I hope you get some time to relax now and be with your family. Merry Christmas to you. Take care.